I used to think every fire tower in Yosemite was there for one reason. Spot smoke. Call it in. Protect the forest. That changed the night I reported a tower that wasn't on any map. Dispatch told me it didn't exist. The strange part wasn't that they denied it. The strange part was that they already knew exactly which tower I was talking about. And before they cut the radio, the dispatcher whispered one sentence I'll never forget. "Whatever you do, don't let its light see you." My name is Nathan Cole. For almost 8 years, I worked as a seasonal fire lookout and wilderness ranger in Yosemite National Park. Wildfires are terrifying. Lightning is unpredictable. Bears are dangerous. But none of those things made me quit. I left because there was another fire tower across the valley. One that shouldn't have existed. One that only appeared after sunset. And every ranger who admitted seeing it eventually disappeared. I arrived at Granite Ridge Lookout in late June. The tower stood nearly 60 feet above a granite cliff overlooking miles of untouched forest. It was isolated, beautiful, exactly the kind of assignment I'd always wanted. The nearest ranger station sat almost 12 miles away. Cell service barely existed. My only reliable communication came through an old VHF radio mounted beside the observation windows. During orientation, the district supervisor, Bill Harper, walked me through the usual procedures. Weather observations every hour. Smoke reports. Equipment inspections. Lightning tracking. Everything seemed routine. Then, just as he was about to leave, he stopped halfway down the stairs. Without turning around, he asked, "What direction does your bedroom window face?" "East." He nodded. "Keep the blinds closed after sunset." I laughed. "Because of the bears?" "No." He continued down the stairs. "Because there's nothing worth looking at." I assumed he was joking. Old ranger humor. Every district had its traditions. Some warned rookies about ghost hikers. Others invented stories about abandoned mines. I figured this was Granite Ridge's version. By the end of my first week, I barely remembered the conversation. The job itself was peaceful. Wake before sunrise. Record weather. Scan the horizon through binoculars. Drink terrible coffee. Watch hawks circle over the valley. Occasionally radio and smoke columns. It was quiet. Almost too quiet. The silence became something you could actually hear. Out there, your own breathing sounded loud. Your footsteps echoed. Even turning pages in a notebook seemed intrusive. After several days, I noticed something odd. Every evening around 8:30, radio traffic stopped. Not slowed. Stopped. Every ranger frequency became completely silent for almost 40 minutes. No weather updates. No vehicle checks. Nothing. Then, exactly at 9:10, everyone started talking again, as if nothing had happened. I asked dispatch about it. The woman laughed. "Maintenance window. Every single night?" "Yep." Radio repeaters. The explanation sounded reasonable, until I checked maintenance logs. No scheduled outages. None. 10 days into my assignment, the first wildfire sparked near Eagle Basin. Nothing major. Dry lightning ignited several trees. Ground crews contained it within hours. I spent the evening monitoring smoke movement through binoculars. Around dusk, visibility improved dramatically. The western sky glowed orange. The valley below darkened. That's when I noticed it. A flash. White. Far across the valley. Another fire tower. Its observation windows reflected the setting sun. I frowned. There shouldn't have been one there. I checked the topographic map. Nothing. Only untouched wilderness. I adjusted the binocular focus. The tower stood on an isolated granite peak almost identical to mine. Same height. Same catwalk. Same roof. Same antenna. Even the paint looked identical. Its windows glowed with warm yellow light. Someone was inside, watching me. I lowered the binoculars, rubbed my eyes, looked again. Still there. The distance made details impossible to distinguish, but I could clearly see movement inside the glass enclosure. A silhouette, standing perfectly still, facing my tower. I grabbed the radio. "Dispatch Granite Ridge." "Static." "Then, go ahead. I've got visual on another lookout across Morrison Valley." Silence. Long enough that I checked whether the transmission had dropped. Finally, "What direction?" "Due east." Another pause. Then the dispatcher asked something strange. "Can you see the light?" I looked back through the binoculars. The lantern inside the opposite tower had grown brighter. Yes. The dispatcher's breathing became audible. Then she said quietly, "It isn't there." I frowned. "I'm looking right at it." "No, it isn't." Then her voice changed. Calm, controlled, almost rehearsed. "If the light turns toward you, close every blind." The transmission ended. I spent another 20 minutes watching. Eventually, darkness swallowed the valley. The mysterious tower remained illuminated. Then, its lantern moved. Not inside the room. Outside, a single bright beam swept slowly across the forest, like someone carrying an old searchlight around the catwalk. It paused, then turned directly toward Granite Ridge. Toward me. Instinctively, I stepped back from the windows. The beam stopped. It had found my tower. I don't know how I knew. The distance made that impossible. But somehow, I knew it was looking directly at me. Then, the beam blinked once, twice, 3 times. A pattern, not random, deliberate. Someone was signaling. I didn't answer. I closed every blind exactly as dispatch had instructed. The room instantly felt smaller. The silence returned. Except now, I could hear footsteps. Slow, heavy, walking around the catwalk outside my own tower. The footsteps circled the tower once, then twice. Heavy, measured, not the quick shuffle of a bear, not the light tapping of a deer. These sounded like boots. Ranger boots. Each step landed on the metal catwalk with a hollow clang that vibrated through the wooden frame beneath me. I grabbed a flashlight and looked toward the door. Whoever was outside never knocked, never spoke. They simply kept walking. One complete circle, then another, then silence. I waited almost 5 minutes before gathering enough courage to unlock the door. The catwalk was empty. No person, no animal, no footprints. The dust covering the metal grating hadn't been disturbed. Yet I had felt every step through the floor. I barely slept. Just before sunrise, I stepped outside, expecting to see signs that I'd imagined the whole thing. Instead, I noticed something carved into the wooden railing. Fresh, deep, 7 vertical lines, not scratches, intentional cuts, exactly 7. I ran my fingers across them. The wood was still warm. Later that morning, another ranger arrived with fuel supplies. His name was Aaron Ruiz. He'd worked Yosemite for nearly 15 years. Calm, friendly, the kind of ranger everyone trusted immediately. While unloading supplies, he noticed me staring across the valley. "You saw it." It wasn't a question. I looked at him. "You know about the tower?" His smile disappeared. "You weren't supposed to." We carried supplies inside without speaking. Only after the helicopter disappeared over the trees did Aaron finally continue. "Don't mention it over the radio." "Why?" "Because they stopped believing you after the second report." "What does that mean?" He ignored the question. Instead, he walked to the east-facing windows. Every blind remained closed. He nodded approvingly. "Good. You listened." I asked him the obvious question. "If that tower isn't real, what was I looking at?" Aaron took a long breath. "No one knows. But everyone who's worked Granite Ridge long enough eventually sees it." "How long?" "It varies. A week, a month, sometimes years." "What happens after that?" He looked away. "They start seeing other things." Before leaving, Aaron handed me a folded piece of notebook paper. It wasn't official. No park logo. No signature. Just handwritten notes. There were 4 rules. Not 6. Not 7. Only 4. If the tower's lantern turns toward you, close every blind. Never flash a light across the valley. Never count how many lights are inside the other tower. If another ranger appears after dark, ask where they're stationed. If they answer, leave immediately. I stared at him. Who wrote this? Aaron folded the paper back into my hand. The last guy. What happened to him? He didn't answer. He climbed into the truck, then drove away. That evening, I couldn't stop thinking about the 3rd rule. Never count how many lights are inside the other tower. Which meant someone had. Around sunset, curiosity got the better of me. The opposite tower appeared again, exactly where it had been before. Lantern glowing, windows shining through the darkness. This time I raised my binoculars immediately. The tower looked clearer than before, almost closer. I could now make out individual window frames, a rocking chair, a weather instrument mounted on the roof. Then, I noticed something impossible. There wasn't one lantern. There were four, one in each corner of the observation room, all burning with the same pale yellow flame. As I watched, a fifth light appeared. No, not appeared. Turned on. Someone had lit another lantern. Then another. 6, 7. I lowered the binoculars instantly. My stomach twisted. Had I already broken the rule? The radio crackled. Static. Then Aaron's voice. Nathan. I reached for the microphone. Aaron. No. The reply came instantly. I'm over here. The voice hadn't come through the radio. It came from outside. I rushed to the window and carefully lifted one blind an inch. Aaron stood on the catwalk, smiling. His truck was nowhere in sight. Neither was the road. He looked completely relaxed, almost cheerful. He raised one hand in greeting, then pointed across the valley. You counted them. I froze. He couldn't possibly know that. Open the door. His smile widened. We need to talk. I remembered the fourth rule. If another ranger appears after dark, ask where they're stationed. If they answer, leave immediately. My throat felt dry. Where are you stationed? He answered without hesitation. The other tower. The moment the words left his mouth, every lantern across the valley went out simultaneously. Darkness swallowed the mountain. Aaron's smile vanished. His head slowly tilted to one side. Farther, farther, until it bent at an angle no human neck should survive. Then he whispered through the closed door. It knows you can see it now. The porch light exploded. The cabin went completely dark, and from somewhere inside my tower, I heard another pair of boots begin climbing the stairs toward the observation room. The footsteps came slowly. One creak, then another. The staircase spiraled around the center of the tower, so I couldn't see whoever was climbing until they reached the landing. I killed my flashlight, held my breath. The only sound in the room was the steady ticking of the weather instruments. Then, the footsteps stopped, exactly one floor below me. Whoever was there wasn't trying to hide. They were waiting for me to move first. A knock echoed through the trapdoor in the floor. One knock. Pause. Two knocks. Pause. Then three. Not random. Deliberate. A rhythm. Like someone confirming they knew I was listening. I didn't answer. The knock came again, this time accompanied by a familiar voice. Nathan. It was Aaron, or something wearing Aaron's voice. I know you're scared. I was too. Silence. Then another sentence. It gets easier after the first time. I backed toward the radio. Dispatch, Granite Ridge. Static. Nothing else. I switched to the emergency frequency. Still nothing. Every channel had gone dead. The only sound coming from a speaker was a faint crackling, almost like distant fire. The voice beneath the trapdoor laughed softly. It won't work. They can't hear this tower. The word sent a chill through me. This tower. Not your tower. This tower. As though mine had become something else. The trapdoor handle turned. Slowly, I grabbed the emergency fire axe mounted beside the window. The handle lifted halfway, stopped, then lowered again. No one came through. Instead, the footsteps continued upward. Impossible. There was no second staircase. Only the trapdoor. Yet I could hear boots climbing above me. Across the roof. Onto the catwalk. Around the observation room. One slow circle. Exactly like the night before. Then something tapped against the glass. Once. Twice. 3 times. I forced myself to look. Outside the east window stood another ranger. Not Aaron. Me. Same uniform. Same face. Same beard. Same scar above my left eyebrow. The only difference, his badge number was upside down. He smiled, then raised one finger, as if asking me to wait. My radio suddenly screamed to life. Nathan, a woman's voice. Real. Panicked. This is dispatch. Listen carefully. The signal crackled violently. If you're seeing yourself, do not let him inside. The transmission cut out. At that exact moment, the man outside knocked gently on the glass. My own face stared back at me, perfectly calm, perfectly patient. He mouthed 4 words. I've been waiting. The lights across the valley came back on. I looked instinctively toward the other tower. This time it looked much closer. Far too close. Its windows were larger, brighter. Inside, dozens of figures stood shoulder to shoulder. Every one of them wore a ranger uniform. Every one of them faced my tower. Every one of them had my face. I stumbled backward. The room suddenly felt wrong. Bigger. The observation windows weren't where they had been seconds earlier. The compass on the wall pointed south instead of north. The clock above the radio spun backward. Reality itself seemed to shift around me. Then I noticed something I hadn't seen before. A framed photograph hanging beside the weather station. It showed Granite Ridge Lookout. Only, there were two towers. Mine, and another directly across the valley. Both labeled on the map. Both officially recognized. I blinked. The labels disappeared. The second tower faded from the photograph like wet ink washing away, leaving only mine behind. Someone whispered directly into my ear. "That's how it eats." I spun around. An elderly man sat quietly in the corner. I hadn't heard him enter. He wore a fire lookout uniform from decades earlier. His badge read, Arthur Bell. His skin looked pale, almost translucent. You finally noticed. What? The park isn't hiding the tower. The tower is hiding itself. Arthur looked exhausted, like someone who hadn't slept in years. It doesn't take people. It replaces them. My stomach dropped. What do you mean? He pointed toward the window where my double still stood smiling. Every time someone remembers, it makes another copy. When the copy learns enough, the original disappears. Outside, my double raised his hand and waved, not at me, at the tower across the valley. Every identical ranger inside the opposite lookout waved back simultaneously. Then, one by one, they began walking toward the exit, as though they were all coming here. Arthur stood. "You have one chance." "What chance?" "Before sunrise, you have to reach the other tower." I stared at him. I thought it didn't exist. It doesn't. He smiled sadly. "Unless it wants you to find it." Then Arthur slowly faded from sight. Not vanished. Not walked away. His body became transparent, until only the empty chair remained. At that same moment, the front door of my tower unlocked itself with a loud metallic click. And somewhere far below, someone started climbing the stairs again. Only this time, there were dozens of footsteps instead of one. The footsteps climbed in perfect rhythm. Not running, not rushing, just coming. Dozens of heavy boots striking old wooden stairs with military precision. Thunk, thunk, thunk. Each step vibrated through the tower. The weather instruments rattled. Coffee sloshed out of my mug. Dust drifted from the ceiling. Whatever was coming wasn't trying to surprise me anymore. It wanted me to know exactly how many of them there were. I looked toward the east window. Across the valley, the impossible fire tower blazed brighter than ever. Its lantern wasn't simply glowing anymore. It pulsed. Every few seconds, the light intensified. Each pulse made the forest below shift slightly, as though the trees themselves were breathing. Then I noticed something impossible. The distance between the two towers was shrinking. The cliffs hadn't moved. The mountains hadn't moved. But the other tower was closer. The first fist struck the trapdoor beneath my feet. Boom! The wood bowed upward. Another hit. Boom! A third. Cracks raced across the old boards. I backed away until I hit the eastern windows. There was nowhere left to go. Then my flashlight caught something carved into the wall beside the emergency exit. It had been hidden behind an old cabinet. The words were almost invisible beneath layers of paint. The towers are never in the same world. Beneath that, smaller letters. The light is the bridge. Arthur's words echoed in my head. Before sunrise, you have to reach the other tower. Not because it existed, because it wanted me there. Unless. That was exactly what it expected. I looked up. The lantern sweeping from the opposite tower paused. Its beam rested directly on my observation room. The wood around me creaked. The light wasn't shining on the tower. It was shining through it. Like the walls had become transparent. It could see me. The trapdoor exploded upward. Splinters filled the room. Hands reached through the opening. Dozens of them. Every sleeve wore a National Park Service patch. Every wrist carried the same Ranger watch I wore. Then the first face appeared. Mine. He smiled. So this is the version that remembered. Another face climbed behind him. Mine again, then another, and another. None of them looked hostile. They looked relieved. The first one stepped into the room. I've done this before. No, I have. Another interrupted him. No, you're both wrong. I was the first. Their voices overlapped. Everyone sounded exactly like me. They began arguing with each other. Not about killing me, about which one was real. While they argued, I noticed something none of them did. Every time the lantern outside pulsed, one duplicate became slightly transparent, then another. The light wasn't feeding them. It was controlling them. The lantern, Arthur had been right. The light was the bridge. Destroy the bridge. And maybe the emergency flare gun hung beside the weather station. I grabbed it. One of the duplicates finally noticed. Don't. His expression changed instantly. Real fear. If you destroy the light, you'll remember everything. I didn't answer. I fired. The flare crossed the valley like a burning comet. For one impossible second, it traveled far longer than it should have, almost as though the distance between the towers had stretched again. Then, it struck the lantern. The explosion wasn't loud. It was silent, completely silent. The flame vanished. Every light inside the impossible tower went dark. The world folded. That's the only way I know how to describe it. The mountains twisted. The valley bent sideways. The stars above Yosemite disappeared, then reappeared somewhere else. The observation room split into dozens of overlapping versions. In each one, a different Nathan stood holding the flare gun. Some had fired, some hadn't. Some were already dead. Some looked decades older. I saw every possible version of myself at once. Then, they all looked at me. The duplicate screamed, not in pain, in panic. One by one, they dissolved into drifting ash. The impossible tower across the valley cracked down the middle. Its windows shattered inward. The entire structure collapsed without making a sound. Then, it simply ceased to exist. Not destroyed, erased, as though someone had removed it from reality. When I opened my eyes, morning sunlight filled the lookout. The trapdoor was intact. No broken wood, no footprints, no duplicates, just silence. Beautiful, ordinary silence. The radio crackled. Nathan, it was dispatch. You missed your weather report. You okay up there? I looked across the valley. Only trees. No tower. No light. Nothing. Search crews arrived later that afternoon. Not because of my report. Because Granite Ridge Fire Lookout had transmitted a distress signal at 3:14 a.m. The strange part? According to every radio log, the distress signal had been sent 43 years earlier. I resigned 3 days later. No investigation. No questions. They accepted my paperwork immediately, almost as if they'd been expecting it. Before leaving, I asked to see every historical map of Yosemite. Every single one showed the same thing. Only one fire tower overlooking Morrison Valley, Granite Ridge. The other tower had never existed. Officially, last month, almost 6 years after I quit, another former ranger contacted me online. He didn't know my story. He simply asked one question. Did they ever tell you why the east-facing blinds had to stay closed? I never replied. Instead, I searched satellite images of Granite Ridge. There was only one tower, exactly where it should be, until I zoomed in the reflection of its observation windows. I saw another fire tower across the valley, standing exactly where it has never existed. Its lantern was lit, and someone inside was watching my house.